Greetings, everyone. Welcome to a webinar that is going to be so educational and informative that you're going to be glad that you're here today. This is the New Jersey Business Action Center and the New Jersey Department of Labor and Workforce Development presenting to you COVID-19 workplace health and safety and worker benefits. And this is all about what employers need to know. We are very excited to be partnering with the Department of Labor because they certainly have been very involved in all of the new COVID safety practices that employers need to be doing in their workplace, as well as initiating the workplace safety for the workers and the benefits. So I'm so pleased that we're partnering also with 3 county economic development offices, and that is Hudson, Bergen, and Passaic County. And they are who are bringing you the webinar today by having sent out to all of their employers in their counties the invitation to participate. And so I'm very pleased to say that we have over 200 businesses from the 3 counties that are on the webinar today, and we are very excited to have them. So we're going to do an overview of the business action services, and then we're going to go into the Department of Labor workplace safety regulations and law. But before we go into that, I would like to have a very brief welcome from the 3 officials who represent the 3 counties that we are partnering with today. Next slide. Next slide. Our welcome is going to be from these 3 officials who are pictured here. And so we're going to start with Stephen Tonelli, who is the chairman of the Bergen County Board of Commissioners. Mr. Tonelli.
Thank you very much. So good morning, everyone. I'm Bergen County Commissioner Chairman Steve Tonelli. I'm happy to join my Hudson and Passaic colleagues, as well as our state partners, in welcoming you all here today. Over the past 8 months, my office here in Bergen has received numerous calls from human resource representatives and businesses of all sizes scrambling to learn the COVID-19 employee guidelines and safety requirements. Now more than ever, as things are starting to reopen and capacities are incrementally increasing, I'm grateful that all of our employers on this call right now can get the information firsthand from the New Jersey Department of Labor and Workforce Development. I want to thank all the agencies that made this possible and for all their tireless efforts during these difficult times.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We appreciate your participation. I'd now like to introduce Pat Lepore. He is the Director of the Passaic County Commissioners. Mr. Director. Mr. Director, if you could unmute.
I'm such
there
a
you
rookie.
are, sir.
Thank you, Melody. I'm very
Thank
pleased
you.
that the County of Passaic and our business community are participating today in this webinar that will provide information on available resources for New Jersey companies relating to COVID-19. I look forward to the New Jersey Department of Labor presentations that will provide information on state and federal worker benefits and and protections, as well as health and safety resources for the employers. Information on earned sick leave and paid family leave will also be addressed. A special thank you to our partners who have worked so hard to develop this webinar, the New Jersey Business Action Center and the New Jersey Department of Labor. It is especially gratifying to work with our economic development partners, Bergen County and Hudson County, on this special event. Thank you all for participating.
Thank you, Director Lepore. And I would now like to introduce Kevin O'Connor. He is the chairman of the Board of Trustees of the Hudson County Economic Development Corporation. And Kevin is on the road today, so we won't be able to see him, but we'll get to hear his voice as he gives us greetings and welcome. Mr. Chairman needs to unmute. Kevin is going to unmute his phone. Kevin? I know that Kevin is there because I just saw him but a few seconds ago.
Melanie, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. I want to first of all congratulate Melanie on her new role. She's done a great job at everything she's ever done dealing in New Jersey and in Trenton. So congratulations on Melanie. And I want to take this time just to thank everybody for coming today. And Hudson County Executive Tom DeGeese asked me just to say a few words. Thank you, everybody, and the freeholders also. Moving forward, I think it's just amazing that here we are today in a snow day, where a year ago we would have called this off. Now, because of COVID, we move forward into modern technology, and now we're having Zoom calls and webinars. So we're moving forward to do this the correct way. So I'm really happy for that. Since the onset of Governor Murphy's emergency order, the New Jersey Department of Labor and Workforce Development, the New Jersey Business Action Center, Hudson, Bergen, Passaic Economic Development Organizations have worked tirelessly to support New Jersey and assist New Jersey businesses. As said before by Pat and Steve, we want to make sure that you get an update of COVID-19 work safety rules and worker benefits. This information is a key step to recovery in your business, and you're going to get a lot of information. At the end of this program, you'll be able to talk to Michelle, Joanne, and Deborah, because they are the people that are leading this for all three counties, Hudson, Bergen, Passaic. Thank you very much. I hope you will find today's webinar helpful.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and stay safe out there. All right. I'd like to now just do a few administrative items. I really want to make sure that everyone does mute so that only the person who's talking is unmuted so we don't have any feedback. All questions will be answered at the end of the presentation, and we'll be answering questions through the chat only. So please put your questions into the chat. The slides will be available to everyone, and we will be sending them out to you. There will be a recording also available, and that's going to be on the New Jersey BAC website, and we will let you all know when that link is available to you. If you want to provide your contact information so that we can get back to you with any questions you have that we didn't get to, please put that in the chat, or all the contact information for everyone will be provided so that if you want to ask any questions offline, you'll be able to do that. So the bottom line is, any question you have that is germane to the webinar today will absolutely be answered, and we look forward to hearing from you. So without further ado, I'd like to get started on giving you a brief overview of just what is the New Jersey Business Action Center. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. So the New Jersey Business Action Center really has a very long history of working for business. Back. Go back, Mike. Bill. Go back. Thank you. Sorry about that. All right. So we have over 30 years in which we have been working for business. And during those 30 years, we have been the business advocate for the business community. And we originally started in the Department of Commerce, but now we are in the Department of State, and we have three offices that are there to serve you. The offices are the Office of Business Advocacy, which actually helps with real estate site searches, helps you find the right location if you're thinking about expanding or moving in response to the changing COVID environment. We also have the Office of Small Business Advocacy, because that office helps all startups. It also helps the Main Street businesses and the BIDs and the SIDs. It helps the small businesses access a variety of resources and answers all their questions. We also have the Office of Export Promotion, where companies who are interested in global business activity can tap into quite a number of resources, like creating an export plan or guidance in identifying global markets and really guiding you through the foreign custom procedures. We actually have a grant right now that is available to businesses if they decide that they'd like to export. So please, if you are even thinking about doing work internationally, we ask you to get in contact with the New Jersey Business Action Center. So we want you to think of the BAC as your great connector. We are the unique people who know exactly who to contact to help you. And if we don't know, we'll find them and we'll be able to put them in touch with you. So our team connects you with technical assistance that you need for fiscal stability and business continuity, like writing a business plan. We identify the critical access to capital, which everyone is in desperate need of now, and we know exactly where to look. So we know where it is on the local level, we know where it is on the state level, and we know where it is on the federal level, with lots of the loan programs that are available through the Small Business Administration, also where we have grants through the Economic Development Authority. And then there are all of the microloans that are available through some of the small loaning programs that are called the CDFIs. And then, of course, there's the local banks. We also can provide you with the guidelines your business needs to identify your personal protection equipment. And as a matter of fact, the EDA, the Economic Development Authority, right now has a program that is available to get you big discounts for buying PPE. And we also help you to clarify mandated employee benefits like earned sick leave, because we have friends at the Department of Labor that we can connect you to. And some of them are on this webinar here today. And also we can identify the licensing and certification requirements you need to operate your business. Bill, can you move it to the third slide? So who are the people that we connect you to? Next one. Well, we connect you to the Economic Development Authority, the New Jersey Treasury Department. As a matter of fact, almost 70% of our questions that come in are to the Treasury Department, because everyone has a connection to the Treasury Department because you all have to pay your taxes. Then we have the Department of Labor and Workforce Development, of course, and the New Jersey Consumer Affairs Division. Yes, this division is very important because they license everyone. And almost every occupation in New Jersey requires a license. And so this is a very important division that we can help you with. And then there's community affairs. How many of you have had run up against your fire code officials in your municipalities? Well, we can help you with trying to get through some of those difficulties with the fire code officials. Then there's the small business development centers. I hope all of you know who they are and are working closely with them, because they're in every county. And they actually are paid for by the Small Business Administration, and the New Jersey Business Action Center funds them as well. And what they do is that they give you technical assistance, one-on-one help in writing a business plan, in putting together a marketing plan, in helping you with filling out your loan application for the very complicated PPP or the EIDL loans that are through the SBA. They can also help you with putting together your export promotion plan, or how about a marketing strategy if you decide that you want to do procurement with either a federal agency, a state agency, local government, or a school board. Procurement is a very difficult to understand process, but can be very lucrative. If for you to sell to the biggest buyer of product in the country, and that's government. And so you absolutely should get involved in this if you have the right product that you want to sell. And so this is where the SBDCs can be helpful to you. And then there's SCORE, which are a lot of retired business people who will help mentor you for free. And then downtown New Jersey, if you're especially in a downtown, we can help connect you because they have a lot of great marketing ideas. And then there are programs that are available from your county or municipality, like your economic development offices in your counties, who are there to help you every single solitary day. And so Bergen County and Passaic County and Hudson County have 3 top-notch directors who are there for you every day. Next slide. So I mentioned earlier the state trade expansion program, which is the grant that we have that's available if you are interested in exporting. And I think you should just kick the tires personally. You may have a product that you would like to expand to other markets and, you know, go outside the United States. As a matter of fact, our exports during this very tough economic time actually expanded during this time. So we say, take a look at the STEP program, as we call it, which is funded in part by the Small Business Administration. And it can help you offset costs for your foreign trade missions, which are pretty much virtual right now, your website development, any of the translation that you need if you're going to another country that doesn't speak English, and also the design of your marketing materials, trade show, booth exhibition, development, all taken care of by this grant. So as I said, kick the tires. I'll be able to give you the contact so that you can figure out whether you'd like to do some exporting. Next slide. So let me just give you some places that you can go for help. In addition, so here is a business-friendly state government website. I know you thought you'd never hear business-friendly and state government all in one line. However, it's true. This is a phenomenal website, and if you haven't looked at it, you absolutely must right after the webinar, which is business.nj.gov. And it has business starter kits. It helps you to put the basics down for creating a business plan. It tells you when all the filings are for your taxes. It helps you with figuring out procurement with the state. And the best feature is that it has a live chat, which is open from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And it is answered by our business advocates at the Business Action Center. And you can just ask them any question within reason, of course, but they will answer those questions for you. And this is an unbelievable website that also has a COVID section. Next slide. And the COVID section is at business.nj.gov/COVID. And this is where you can find the answers to all of the governor's economic development strategies. You can get his safety protocols on state and federal levels. You can get the government executive orders, the Department of Health executive orders. It links you to grants, capital, and loans. And it also answers the question, what to do if my employees get COVID, which is a very important question that a lot of businesses need to answer. And I'm sure the Department of Labor also will touch on that today too. So we have answered over 60,000 questions on this live chat since March, and we're going for 100,000 because we want to hear from you. And so please use this benefit. That concludes the information I'd like to give you on the New Jersey Business Action Center. And I will have some contact information for you at the end of the webinar so that you know how to get in touch with us. But now, on the next slide, I would like to introduce you to the New Jersey Department of Labor and the two people who are going to be speaking to you today. So Holly Lowe is the Manager of Strategic Outreach with the department. She earned her master's degree in public policy from the Blaustein School at Rutgers. She's been the Manager of Strategic Outreach at the department since September of 2018, and her work is focused on COVID-19 benefits and protections, including the New Jersey Earned Sick Leave Law and state and federal paid leave laws. We're also going to hear from Mark Wadiak. He is the Assistant Director with the department and is overseeing the OSHA and POSHA consultation and training programs, hope I got that right, Mark, and the Mine Safety Education Program. His background includes working as a quality control chemist in the pharmaceutical industry and working with the U.S. Department of Labor, OSHA, as a compliance safety and health officer for several years. He has 35 years experience within the New Jersey Department of Labor, assisting companies in identifying OSHA hazards and developing effective safety and health programs. I'd now like to turn our webinar over to these two experts from our department, and we couldn't have two better qualified people to make a presentation to us today. Hit it.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Can you give me a...
Yes, we're good.
Melanie? Great, thank
We're good.
you. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. Thank you for this warm welcome on this snowy day, Melanie. And on behalf of the department, we wanted to thank you very much. Thank you to the Business Action Center and to Bergen, Hudson, and Passaic County officials for having us today and for all of your tireless efforts and your partnership. So again, I'm Holly Lowe. I work on strategic outreach in the Office of the Commissioner, and we're looking forward to sharing some key information with you on workplace health and safety and answering your questions today. So first we share our disclaimer here. The department is providing this information to give general information only, and it does not carry the force of legal opinion. This presentation is intended to give you access to information on our programs. And while we try to keep it timely and accurate, there's oftentimes a delay between official publications and the modification of this information. So we can make no express or implied guarantees. And the Register and Administrative Code do remain the official sources for regulatory information published by the department. And we make every effort to keep our information current and to correct errors brought to our attention. Next. Okay, so first we have a quick overview for you of what we're going to cover today. Mark Wadiak will be covering Executive Order 192, which is our workplace health and safety requirements in New Jersey. And he'll share some of our top resources for you on that executive order. And then I'll discuss benefits and protections for workers and some additional resources for you. And then afterwards, we'll do our best to answer your questions. And we do have a couple more colleagues on hand to field your questions, including our policy advisor, Christine Blumauer, and policy director, David Bander. And as Melanie said, please feel free to put your questions in the chat throughout the presentation, and we will be tracking them and answer as many as we can after our slides are finished. And we do want to note before we get started, as many of you probably know, that President Biden issued an executive order last month, which suggested that the Federal Occupational Safety and Health Administration may issue COVID-19 standards. And the state is making every effort to regularly communicate with our federal partners. And we're closely following developments on this, and we will keep you informed. And I'm going to hand it over to Mark now, who will be covering Executive Order 192.
Okay, thank you, Holly and Melanie. Can you hear me? Can anybody hear me? Okay. This is an overview of Executive Order 192. This became effective on November 5th, and it covered a number of requirements, many that already were addressed by CDC, but it put it in an executive order for all workplaces in the state of New Jersey. The executive order covers social distancing, face masks, sanitization, hand hygiene, cleaning and disinfecting, the daily health checks, and what to do when there's symptoms and exposures in the workplace. Next slide. Social distancing, we're generally talking of maintaining a distance of at least 6 feet between employees and others, visitors, etc. More distance is certainly welcomed because that increases, that barrier, that possible closeness, where we can pass the virus from one person to another. So certainly if you have a workplace with more room, you can spread people out even more. And we have to consider not only what's happening in the maybe the manufacturing section of a workplace, but also when people get together in a room or in other areas where they might be close in a restroom or break room, that people also have to be separated as well. And certainly if the distance cannot be maintained, make sure employees are always wearing masks. Next slide. There's a number of requirements that the executive order has pertaining to face masks. And one is that basically everyone entering the work site wear a face mask with certain exceptions. Of course, there's exceptions for those under 2 years of age. Maybe there's issues, with people that have disabilities. Of course, you can't wear a mask when you're eating or drinking, but still, even in that situation, you want to maintain distance between other employees. And there's other executive orders that cover some of these requirements as well, such as Executive Order 175 that covers requirements in school districts. Next slide. So employees at their workstations, when they're more than 6 feet from others, or especially if they're alone in a walled office, they may be permitted to remove their face mask. A major requirement that everybody should understand is that the employer must provide at their expense these face masks for their employees. And you don't want to discourage employees if they have their own face mask or that if they have a surgical grade face mask or, some other type face mask, as long as it's something that provides a protective layer. We're looking at more as face masks as being source control, and generally you'll see recommendations for 2 or more cloth layers on the face mask. And if we can go back a slide, please. And the face mask, make sure that there's, if an employee is already required to wear, say, a higher degree of protection, such as a respirator that has additional requirements, that they still continue to wear those in the workplace. And employers may deny an employee entry if they decline to wear a face mask, except where that may violate any state or federal law. Next slide. I'm stuck on masks. So the next slide there, please. So basically, if you have employees that may have a disability, they're covered by the ADA or New Jersey laws against discrimination. And what's important, that the employer has the right to request that employee provides medical documentation supporting their claim why they cannot wear a face mask. And then we might look, well, what can we do with that employee? Well, it may be they're located at a further distance from other employees. Maybe there's a cubicle or walled off area where they can be located. Perhaps they can wear a face shield, as something that can afford, greater protection to other employees that may be in that area. Next slide. So employers can deny any customers or visitors to their worksite entry if they're not wearing a face mask. Again, if there's a disability, ADA considerations, et cetera, then perhaps an accommodation is made. So many of you might be familiar where you drive up to a restaurant and the food is brought outside, or a retail location where they have curbside deliveries. So that's an accommodation that possibly can be made. In this instance, though, the employer cannot require that customer or individual to produce medical documentation, unlike the employee. Next slide. Sanitization is important, and the employer has to provide sanitization materials such as hand sanitizers and sanitizing wipes to employees for their use in the workplace. You'll see it mentioned there. It says hand sanitizer and wipes must be approved. Approved is not really the correct word to use here. It's kind of thrown around a lot. It's hand sanitizers are basically regulated by the Food and Drug Administration. And you want to make sure that the product you're using contains at least 60% alcohol. And if you really want to get into it, check the hand sanitizer that you purchase. You can go on the FDA site to make sure that it's not one of those hand sanitizers that may contain methanol, which the FDA says you should not be using because methanol is hazardous to our health. Next slide. You want to make sure in the workplace that employees are provided repeated breaks as necessary to wash their hands as needed because of possibly the work that they're doing and the contact that they may be having. So certainly be considerate and allow additional breaks for that hand washing. And if employees are being required to wear gloves in the workplace, please understand that it's the employer's responsibility to provide those gloves. And for just protective equipment in general, Holly's going to put a link in the chat, I believe, that covers that there's discounts available to employers that have 100 or less employees, where they can get up to a 65% discount on protective equipment. Next slide. So cleaning and disinfecting, you want to make sure there's routine cleaning that's taking place. And you'll be following basically Department of Health and CDC guidelines. And if something's very dirty, soap and water initially is used to clean that surface. And then you could go further into using a disinfectant to disinfecting high touch areas such as doorknobs, doors, handrails, table surfaces, and maybe shared equipment in the workplace. And of course, if there's any known or potential exposures to coronavirus in the workplace, possibly then you need to go into a deeper cleaning regimen, again, following CDC recommendations. And you can find additional information on the links that we're providing, or going to CDC to see what is required to do additional or deep cleaning. Next slide. Employees, visitors, others that come to the company, you want to make sure there's something to evaluate that employee's health when they come into the workplace. Are you doing temperature screenings or visual symptom checks or some type of self-assessment checklist? So something should be happening before people come into the workplace to make sure they will not expose other employees. So some complaints we're getting, some say, hey, they're not doing temperature checks. Well, specifically, a company does not have to do a temperature screening, but they need to have some type of program or process in place where they're doing a symptom check, they're having employees self-evaluate, filling out questionnaires, something of that manner. And also, you want to make sure that you follow CDC guidance as far as what these symptoms are. And you want to make sure that any health checks, you're following any ADA requirements and, as it mentions there, Eeoc and any requirements from New Jersey Division of Civil Rights. Next slide. If there's exposures in the workplace, or somebody comes to the workplace who's sick, or somebody who gets sick during the day, you want to make sure that employee is separated from others and, try to get them home as quickly as possible. And you want to make sure that employees that are sent home, you want to be aware that there's protected leave laws that you must follow for employees that are required to leave the workplace. You'll also need to realize that communication is important. So employees that may have been exposed to somebody with COVID at the workplace need to be informed of that exposure so that they can take proper actions. There may be necessary, it may be for an employee to go for a COVID test, if they were in contact with an employee known to have an exposure. If you're in that workplace with that employee for 15 minutes or more, close to that employee within 6 feet, then you have something that's known as an exposure. So definitely communicate with employees, and that should be part of any workplace program. It should be spelled out what that communication will look like, because many of the complaints we receive, employees say, hey, we know employees have COVID in the workplace, but nobody's telling us. So be clear on how you will notify employees in the workplace when there are known cases. And also, as we mentioned before, if somebody is diagnosed with COVID-19 in the workplace, make sure that work area is thoroughly cleaned according to CDC guidelines. Next slide. There are certain exceptions for employers that may be providing emergency response, or employees that have emergency response roles in the workplace. And you can see a number are listed on that slide. But again, these exceptions to the Executive Order 192 requirements only apply during that emergency situation. If those emergency personnel are on a break or something and grouped together, they're obviously in violation of Executive Order 192. And also, Executive Order 192 does not apply to employees of the United States government, but certainly if we do get complaints of that nature, we refer to the appropriate agency, and sometimes we'll also send a letter to that employer just notifying them, hey, we received a complaint, just make sure you're on top of providing your employees with the proper protections. And also there may be religious exemptions for utilizing certain protective equipment, and you should be aware of those as well. And I would just like to add that currently at the New Jersey Department of Labor, we have over 2,700 complaints that we have received. About either maybe employees not wearing face masks, not social distancing, not being allowed to wash their hands, no cleaning or sanitization materials, employees not being notified. So please be aware that, all these should be addressed in your workplace plan and how you'll, provide for your employees to protect them while they're in the workplace. Next slide. The Department of Labor does have additional resources. You can reach out to us for assistance. Next slide. We have an on-site consultation program, and you can see the website there. That's nj.gov/labor/consultation. And we can come to your company. And when I say come to your company, most of what we're doing now is either virtual or a hybrid consultation where we might have limited on-site visits. But we will assist your company with developing an infectious control program. We'll also provide training for you and the employees. And this is available on the public and private sector. So on the public side, our New Jersey Department of Health partners get involved with assisting in this area. And on the private side, that's through our New Jersey Department of Labor on-site consultation program. There's telephone numbers that you can contact us at, as well as emails that are listed on that slide. And also know that for employees that are on paid leaves, there's also federal business tax credits that are available as well to you. And there's a link on that slide as well. So that concludes my portion, but if you have any questions on any of the workplace requirements, you can reach us at 609-292-0767. And we also have a website, covid.safety@dol.nj.gov, where you can send your questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, it's me again, and let's talk about benefits and protections for workers. I'm looking at the clock. I'm going to try to get through these in record time because I really think the space for questions and answers is very valuable. So forgive me if I fly through these, but again, you'll be getting these slides. Next, Christine. And I will be adding some handy links in the chat, just so you know. So we really think of worker benefits and protections as the other side of the equation here for keeping your workplace healthy and safe. We know that many of you are already familiar with federal and state benefits and protections for workers and what your obligations are. But if you're not, we encourage you to learn more about them and proactively share this information with workers, because we know if a worker understands prior to being exposed to COVID or contracting COVID, if they already know some of these benefits and protections, they're more likely to stay home and keep you and your workforce safe. Next slide. So we know there are so many different laws, federal and state, that it can be very overwhelming, both for employers and workers. So we've come up with what we think are our top 4 that we think you should know about. And I'm going to go through each of these in more detail. But essentially, under the law in New Jersey, you can't fire or retaliate against an employee if they need time off to get tested or quarantine, if they have a note from a medical professional recommending that time off. And during that time off, that employee could be eligible for employer paid or state cash benefits. You can't discriminate against an employee for having COVID-19. And finally, if an employee needs time off to care for a loved one who has COVID-19, their job may be protected and they may be eligible for state cash benefits, or in other words, paid family leave. Next slide. Okay, so for the first one, there's lots of different options for an employee in this situation who may need time off to get tested. Oops, no, I'm talking about number 2 here. Sorry about that. So this is just our new law that we have that came into effect under the pandemic, which prohibits an employer from firing or otherwise retaliating against a worker for taking that time off to test or quarantine. They do need a note from a medical professional recommending that time off from work. And this law only applies during the public health emergency and state emergency that we're currently under. This law is enforced by the New Jersey Department of Labor, and you can learn more at the link there. And you should also take note that a worker in this situation might also be eligible for job protected leave under the FMLA, the Federal Family Medical Leave Act, which is enforced by the US Department of Labor. Next slide. Okay, so this is the one that has a lot of different pieces to it that I jumped to accidentally. So essentially, an employee in that situation who needs the time off to test or quarantine has a lot of different options that they could be eligible for, including employer paid and or state cash benefits. So the first is New Jersey Earned Sick Leave. It's a relatively new law. It's been in effect a couple years. The employer pays for New Jersey Earned Sick Leave, and our agency enforces this law. We have a great website called mysickdays.nj.gov that I encourage you to check out. That's one of the links I will put in the chat for you. But it's important to know there's a lot of specific requirements in there in terms of documentation by an employee, what you can and can't require in different situations, as well as notice requirements and the like. So take a look at that link when I share it with you. Now, federal emergency paid sick leave is an option for a worker in this situation. This was originally part of the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, but this is now voluntary as of January 1st for employers, but the tax credits still apply. So if you provide those leaves, you could be eligible for a 100% tax credit. This is what Mark had mentioned on his slide as well. So that link is there for you. Temporary disability insurance is an option as well with a doctor's certification. And our agency administers this benefit, and workers would apply online at myleavebenefits.nj.gov. And finally, pandemic unemployment assistance could be an option for this worker. This was extended by the stimulus bill that was signed at the end of December, and it covers many COVID-19 scenarios. So we want to make sure you do know about that. And this tool that we have listed here is really great for someone to understand which of these might apply to them. Getstarted.nj.gov. And I talk a little bit more about that later. Next slide. This one we'll just cover briefly because our partners at the New Jersey Division on Civil Rights enforce this law, but essentially employers cannot discriminate against an employee for having COVID-19. And you can learn more about the different rights and protections against discrimination and bias-based harassment related to COVID and the law against discrimination at the Civil Rights website here. Next slide. So finally, this is essentially what we call paid family leave in New Jersey. It's a little tricky in our state because essentially there's two laws when you talk about paid family leave. So if an employee needs time off to care for a loved one with COVID, they could be eligible for this. Their job may be protected under the New Jersey Family Leave Act, which is enforced again by our partners at the Division on Civil Rights. And on the other side, they could be eligible for wage replacement cash benefits. And that's called family leave insurance, which is what our agency administers. And the employee would apply again at myleavebenefits.nj.gov. So essentially an employee in this situation could be taking job protected leave under the Family Leave Act and over the same period of time receiving family leave insurance benefits. And again, pandemic unemployment assistance could be an option for someone in this situation. And for pandemic unemployment assistance, you essentially apply for unemployment, but we have some specific advice and tips for those who think they are eligible for PUA. And you can find those at myunemployment.nj.gov. And I'll put that in the chat as well. Next slide. So those were our top 4, and we just want to mention a few others briefly. There was a change to workers' compensation law in New Jersey, and we want to make sure you know about it if you employ essential employees. The law created a rebuttable presumption of workers' comp coverage for COVID-19 cases. Essentially what this means is for someone defined as an essential employee, if they contract COVID, it's presumed that it was contracted in the workplace, but an employer can seek to rebut that presumption. Next, mandatory remote learning. We know a lot of employees find themselves in the situation where their child has to do remote learning at home. There are certain benefits and protections, many of which we covered here today, that those employees could be eligible for. And also, when you have employees who've been on unemployment for a while, and then you recall them to the workplace, or perhaps you make an offer of work to somebody who's been on unemployment, there are some limited circumstances in which that person could continue to receive unemployment benefits. For the most part, they would be required to return or accept an offer, but there are some certain situations that we want to make sure people are aware of. So you can learn about all of those at our website. Next slide. Just want to mention contact tracing on behalf of our partners at the Department of Health to encourage your employees to help stop the spread and answer contact tracing calls and messages. Next slide. And again, this is not our program, but we're sharing it on behalf of the Department of Health, that it's great if you can provide vaccine information to your workforce, including this link that employees can go to learn more about the options to schedule appointments. Obviously, we know that this is a huge challenge right now, and we are all awaiting more supply in the state. And this is what we're all counting on for our workforce, right? Next slide. This is a great resource I mentioned before. This is our online eligibility tool. You go on here, you answer a few questions, and it can tell you what you may be eligible for. This is still being updated with a couple federal changes, but we expect to be rolling that out any day now. We also have a really great chart that some of you might have seen that I'm going to put in the chat. That's essentially like a chart version of this tool. And we have updated that with the recent federal changes. So I'll be putting that in the chat for you. These are both really great things to share with your workers because they help show them, based on their COVID scenario, what benefits and protections they should look into. Next slide. And this is my last slide, and then we can get into Q&A, but we just want to make sure that you know about our shared work program, which is an alternative to layoffs. An employer who has at least 10 employees may apply for this program. And the idea is under an approved program, workers who have their hours of work reduced may receive unemployment benefits for the lost hours of work. And then they would continue to work at reduced hours with a continuation of health insurance and pension coverage and other benefits. We have a new toolkit for temporary disability and family leave insurance that we made specifically for employers and HR staff that we would love for you to check out. And finally, we do have a dedicated webpage for employers where we keep all of our COVID-19 guidance and resources and FAQs updated for you. So be sure to check out that link as well. Okay, we are looking forward to your questions and also your feedback. If you have any ideas or thoughts on how we can improve our materials and information, we would love to hear it. It is very important to us, and we take it seriously. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Holly, and thank you so much, Mark. I'd like to go to the next slide. So these are the important websites and the New Jersey Back hotline for your information, and we'll also put that in the chat. Okay, and also I now would like to do some thank yous before we get into our chats questions. So first, I would like to thank Joanne Semaluka. She is the director of the Bergen County Economic Development Office and has been an absolute great partner. Michelle Richardson, who's the executive director of the Hudson County Economic Development Corporation, who also we work very closely with, and Deborah Hoffman. She is the director of the Passaic County Division of Economic Development. And you can see here how you are able to get in touch with all of these individuals. And so we look forward to you contacting them. There's their email, and then there is their phone numbers as well. And the New Jersey Business Action Center has business advocates who work directly with all of the county economic development offices. And I would be remiss if I did not say that a big shout out to Steve Milgram and Mike Mangan, who are our business advocates at the back, who work directly with Joanne, Michelle, and Deborah. And so now on the next slide, you can see all their contact information as well as mine. And we're now going to take all your questions. So sorry for that little snafu, but now the questions that are in the chat. So let's take a look. Okay, let's see. Questions from the audience. We have information from Holly on mysickdays.nj.gov. We also have info on tax credits for providing federal emergency paid sick leave or childcare. There was a question that started a few minutes ago, which was about whether or not you are allowed as an employer to mandate that all your employees get vaccinated. And I understand that perhaps one of our individuals from the Department of Health might be able to answer that question directly.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. This is Gary from the Department of Health. We've had some inquiries about mandatory vaccinations, and what we can see so far is that under OSHA requirements, an employer can mandate vaccinations. There are some precautions to be aware of in that this vaccine is being distributed and implemented under an emergency use authorization. So there remains questions about a final determination by FDA on the use of the vaccine and how that impacts the requirement an employer may mandate for employees. So the short answer is, at this point, there are an employer can mandate. From what we see so far, it is not currently a Department of Health position to mandate vaccines for employees at this point. So I guess it's still a kind of wait and see, how this evolves over time. So that's kind of where we are at the moment.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Melanie, I just would like to add something for the benefit of the listeners, that this is a question we've heard a lot as well at the Department of Labor, and we did work with civil rights to draft an FAQ on this that we should be publishing shortly, but it is along the lines of what Gary was saying. And the thing to be aware of is individuals with a disability or who are pregnant or breastfeeding or have been specifically advised not to get the vaccine, that you have to look out for that and provide reasonable accommodation. So we'll be publishing something very soon because it's been approved already. We literally yesterday got approval. So look out for that on our website.
Okay, great. So I just saw that a question came in about whether there is a second round of PPE that is available for small businesses. And yes, there is a second round with the New Jersey Economic Development Authority. And so if you go to the business.nj.gov/COVID website, you can find information about that. Or you can just email me and I can send you the link directly. Okay, we have another question, which is, let's see. Let's see, we have, are employees of retail, restaurant, food industry considered frontline, and are they able to get vaccinated under phase 1?
Gary, do you want to take this one?
Hi, yes, this is Gary again. The designations under the categories for vaccinations are still being developed. The latest determinations are on the website under COVID-19 /vaccinations. So I don't have any updated information if that has specifically been addressed at this point in time, but Any new information would be available on the state's webpage regarding the designations for our frontline workers.
And that would be covid19.nj.gov.
Yes, and then /vaccinations.
Right. So that is the state website that is the Bible for all things COVID for individuals, employees, and employers.
Yeah.
Next one is
I would like to, so maybe
go on, I'm sorry.
To support Gary's point, all the occupations or individuals that are currently eligible are listed on covid19.nj.gov/vaccination. If your category doesn't appear there, it means that there has not been a determination that's been made already. And that would be true for the ones that were listed in the question.
Thank you, Christine. Our next question is, can employers request a negative COVID-19 PCR test before allowing an employee to return to work?
We are currently working on providing an official guidance on this question, and I expect it to be published very soon. I know a lot of people have that question, and we're working hard on that. So we will keep you posted. And Melanie, on some of these key ones, I'll be sure to let you know when we publish them.
Well, thank you, and then we can get that out. Okay, we have a question that says, will the consultation assist in putting a plan or process in place, or at least an outline to formulate for an agency? Not quite sure what that question is about. So the person who asked it, if you can give me some more details.
I can probably help directly there, Melanie.
Oh, yes, okay, thank you, Mark.
We will not write your whole plan for you, but we will provide guidance and a lot of times sample programs, not only for COVID-19, but in general for a variety of workplace safety and health issues. So it could be a bloodborne pathogen exposure control plan or lockout tagout program. So we always assist the employers with what is needed to put in a program, and oftentimes can provide sample type programs as well.
Thank you very much, Mark. I appreciate that. And I'm sure that Pamela appreciates that also. So we have another question: how to apply for a tax credit under the paid sick leave program? Who would like to take that one?
Hi, so that's through the IRS, and I provided the link in the chat. So you can check out the IRS website there. I don't know the specifics of applying, but because we don't handle that as an agency, that's the IRS.
Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, let's see. Any other questions? Do you see any other questions, Christine?
Yeah, I see one for Mark.
Okay.
On lunch breaks.
Oh, yes. I think it's from Colleen. Would you please repeat what you said, Mark, about Executive Order 192 and lunching together? It went by a bit fast, so I did not quite get it.
Okay, so basically the key is that you set up that lunch area so that there's social distancing in the lunch area. I've seen some employers where they've also added barriers to their lunch areas to further separate employees. So obviously you can't wear a mask when you're eating, but separation does become important. Another thing employers can do is look at staggering their lunch breaks so that a whole group of employees are not going at once. So the idea is to incorporate social distancing as much as possible.
Thank you, Mark. So if there is a conflict between state law and federal law, which one applies?
So EO 192 is set such that there shouldn't be any conflict between federal and state law. EO 192 exists absent of federal standards being in place.
Right. So,
Okay.
I mean, there's Executive Order 192, which has requirements that are not covered by the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. But if you've been following what's going on at the federal level, the guidelines have basically been, put out there again, kind of reinforced more strongly. And we're told that somewhere around mid-March, we're likely to possibly see the federal government issue an emergency temporary standard. And it's possible at that point, there could be preemption of some of what we're doing under Executive Order 192.
At this point, yeah, all we are doing is following closely and communicating closely with federal partners, as Holly mentioned in the beginning, to make sure that we can adapt and also communicate accordingly with New Jersey stakeholders at that point.
I just want to add one quick thing. The particular federal law, I think that comes to mind for me as the National Labor Relations Act. So if you have a unionized workplace, like in the absence of a specific directive, like if we're still in the realm of guidance with respect to COVID-19 and vaccinations and not anything more than guidance, I think that would have to be reconciled with the need to present it to the union, and particularly if it's a mandated vaccination. I mean, I think that's a mandatory subject of bargaining. So I do think that is something that would have to be discussed with the union. And if you're trying to discipline somebody in a unionized workplace who's not taking the vaccine, I mean, I don't think that is clear right now that's something that would pass. So just in the context of a unionized workplace, I would say, as long as we're still in the realm of guidance, that it's something that should certainly be discussed with the union prior to implementing.
Thank you, David. It is just a little past 1 o'clock, and so we just have a few more questions and then we'll need to wrap that up. So we have a question about how to start an EEOC. Who would like to answer where you would start that? I would imagine that is with the Division of Civil Rights. So we can come back and take that offline and answer that question. There's one last one, which is they would like samples of a COVID-19 safety sample and other samples to which you referred. So is this ringing a bell with anyone at the Department of Labor? Samples of a COVID-19 safety sample.
If this is referring to, so there are templates that the CDC has for health screenings, for instance. So if the question goes to those samples, then yes, we have them, and we have them on our dedicated EO 192 website.
I just added our website. It was in the slides, but I just added it to the chat. So there are, she's added an additional part of her question here.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think, Colleen, if you could email, I just put my email in the chat. If you want to send me an email, I don't think we understand your question about a bloodborne pathogen sample. So if you could email me, we will follow up with you.
Yeah,
I think what she may be looking for is just some of the assistance that we offer through the New Jersey Department of Labor on-site consultation program. And she should contact us there, and then we can provide her with that assistance.
Thank you.
Okay, Colleen has said yes, that is helpful. Okay, so here's one last question. Will the state mandate or recommend at one point in time wearing a face shield in addition to a face mask for better protection of the eyes? It's our last question. Anyone want to take that?
I just wanted to say under Executive Order 192, if you're just looking at it in general, it's face mask and then a face shield, if necessary, because of there's someone claiming a disability. But outside of that, if you're looking at it from a personal protective equipment point of view, where you have to protect the eyes from spraying or splashing, and that could be in a hospital situation with blood or other potentially infectious materials, or in the workplace with chemical materials, then you may have to provide additional eye protection, and that could be chemical splash goggles, face shields, etc. So you have to look at each situation individually. But just in general with COVID, no.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Now here's really our last question, because this is an important one. What is the best way to track employee daily health, like temperature checks, that is in compliance with all privacy laws?
Mark, do you want to take this one?
Well, the key is that, if you check temperature, you don't make a big deal, hey, we got one, and start parading that person around or revealing their name in the workplace. You just have that person step aside. Maybe they'll go to another area where they're checked again in 5 minutes. But the idea is you don't, reveal someone's health issue or make a big scene about it. You try to keep that information confidential. And as I said, temperature check is only, it's not that you have to do the temperature check. It's only one suggested method of pre-screening an employee for symptoms.
But Mark, just as a follow-up to that question, isn't it important for an employer to maintain some record, albeit private and confidential, of the fact that they are actually doing screenings, so that should there be a complaint that they're not, that they have proof?
Right. I mean, that should be part of their overall plan. They have that in writing. They might be documenting that there's signs on the front door. We have a pre-screening and pre-screening process. Your temperature will be checked as you enter our premises. There'll be information and materials like that going out to the employees as well as visitors to that location.
Right.
I mean, some places you go stand in front of a unit that measures your temperature, and if your temperature is above a certain level, then you'll move to another area where I said it may be checked again in 5 minutes. But you do not want to kind of make a big scene about, this employee has a high fever and everybody knows their name. It's kind of kept more confidential. And what you do at the workplace is, it's just kind of follow a procedure that's written, your plan. And, somebody comes in, this is what you're doing. These are the tests you might be taking, or the symptoms you're looking at, or the questionnaire that's being filled out. So that should all be kind of done beforehand, and so that you are following a procedure that protects that employee's confidentiality.
Okay, thank you so much, Mark. And thank you to our panelists. So in conclusion, I would like to ask our Hudson, Bergen, and Passaic County economic development directors if they have any final words to say thank you to everyone. So I'd like to start with Joanne Simaluka. If you'd like to have any words for our participants.
Sure. Thank you, Melanie and Holly and Mark, and the Business Action Center, the executives that came in from the 3 counties, and my counterparts in economic development. It's a lot of information that we learned today, a lot. And as my commissioner alluded to in the beginning, our office has got a lot of calls asking about COVID measures, safety protocols, bringing employees back, mandating vaccines, lots of information out there that needed to be answered. So we thought it best to go right to the source. And that was what we did and heard here today. So I want to say to my Bergen companies who might be on, if there's any further clarity that you might need from anybody or any entity that you heard from today, please feel free to reach out to me. I will help you. I will hold your hand in getting the information. And as you can see, our state partners are extremely well versed in this and right by our side to help us through all these tough times. So thank you, everyone. And thank you to the Bergen and all the other businesses that are on here today. Please feel free to reach out to me if you need anything.
Thank you, Joanne. And now I'd like to move to our partner, Michelle Richards from the Hudson County Economic Development Corp.
Thank you very much. Melanie, and thank you to the Business Action Center, Department of Labor, all the panelists. An extraordinary amount of really, really good information. And Melanie, I go back to what you said earlier. Joanne, Deborah, and we're here to help businesses every day. And, you know, after today's webinar, there's no wrong door. If Hudson businesses, Bergen or Passaic businesses have questions, no matter what door you enter, we're going to get you to the right partner. One quick soundbite. I love my county partners, Joanne and Deborah. We're going to be back together again tomorrow at 10 a.m. to talk about a really important grant program. So visit our websites. This is second phase of the NJRA program. The three of us are back together again. But thank you so much, Melanie, to you and the extraordinary team for inviting us to participate today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michelle. And now Deborah Hoffman from Passaic. Deborah, a great partner again. We'd like you to extend your best wishes. You're on mute, Deborah.
I always like to leave myself on mute. I'm better off. Thank you, Melanie. Thank you to the Department of Labor, Holly and Mark. Fantastic presentations, really. It's a great webinar. And my partners are just so amazing. Michelle and Joanne, they're fabulous, dynamic professionals. And thank you, Michelle, for that plug for the NJRA webinar tomorrow. It's phase 2 of their business lease grant program. Very, very important. So thank you all very much for a fabulous and dynamic webinar today.
Well, thank you. Thank you, everyone. And thank you to the Department of Labor and to all of the people you had on board to help answer questions. You did an outstanding job. And it's so important for employers to know what their responsibilities are and for their employees to know what benefits they get. And I think that's the way we all stay out of trouble, right? Okay, so thank you to everyone, and I hope everyone stays safe out there and that you don't have to shovel today. So thank you, and bye-bye from the New Jersey Business Action Center.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.